Okay, so now that you've learned how to code your data, let me just show you some projects that we've actually completed, and as a way of also explaining how analysis is done with qualitative research, because so far we haven't yet gotten to, okay, so these are the findings, and this is what you can do with deduce to communicate those findings. Okay, so I will first show you the visual search project, since that was the example we were working with, so you can see a completed analysis. So here I brought in all of the data. For this particular project, I brought it in by the interview transcript. I separated those documents, but you really don't have to. You can just do it exactly like I showed you and have it all in one document and bring it in. So let's go to the codes, so you can see the codes are many. And so this is what I was telling you, that the codes can get quite many, and this is because you want to capture all the key ideas. You don't want to skip anything, and you want to keep being objective and keep being rigorous. And so this list can really be very, very long. And again, that goes to when I was talking about the ways to code, I explained that I like to use the space button and then to bring up all the codes, and this is why, because sometimes I have a lot of codes. Anyway, so what I wanted to show you is, first, let me just show you what codes I have really quickly. As you can see, I have things about the knowledge graph, negative perceptions, positives, and I coded these, and so it's easy for me to tell how many positives and negatives there were and things like that. And also I have things about, say, the tutorial, and some people found the tutorial helpful and some didn't. In this case, one person, or I have one excerpt under the helpful ones, and not helpful I have 6. So already you can see how you can communicate and say, 6 people out of the X number of people we interviewed. I think for this one we had 7. So 6 people out of 7 found the tutorial not to be helpful, and only one person found it to be helpful. But see, that's the difference between quantitative and qualitative. You can't just stop there. That would be a quantitative survey. One would want to know, well, why? What did they find to be unhelpful? What exactly were they saying? And so if you analyze your data with something like deduce, all you'd need to do to get the why and the rich detail is to click on this excerpts, the quotes button here, which brings up all of your excerpts, and you can just quickly read through the responses that have to do with the tutorial not being helpful. And then you can write your report and say, I don't think people need that much hand holding, etc., etc., and you can get some good quotes and things like that. But this would be very difficult to do if during the excerpting stage you were highlighting so much text, rather than being very careful about only highlighting what's really needed to convey a meaningful idea. And so it goes back to exercising great judgment when doing the coding process. But so you have that. And a thing I like to use is this analyze button, and under code charts there's a code application option, and this shows you the number of excerpts within each code, and you have them for all of your codes. Okay, so see, for example, the tutorial here that we were just looking at, helpful is 1, not helpful is 6. And so you can quickly, you can do that for each of the codes. Okay, one person, I have a list of recommendations here. 2 people recommended to include a hover over option, a help button, 1 person, etc., etc. And so you can you can export this into Excel, and you can delete these other rows, because these other rows currently are telling me each of the transcripts I had, and that's again because I imported this data as separate note summaries as opposed to one document. So if it was one document, these totals will be just up here. But once you upload it to Excel, you can delete that, and you can make pie charts and cool graphs, or you can simply just more easily see what your totals are for each code. So this is super, super helpful. I can't really explain just how helpful it is, because I'm usually able to just tell you the number of people that express a certain sentiment, which is important in fields such as user research, where stakeholders want to know, well, how important is this issue? It's you can't equate responses that was stated by one person versus, say, something that was expressed by 10 people. They're obviously different. One is more important than the other, and this helps you to quantify that, but to also accompany that quantification with the detailed information by just clicking on the excerpts and getting what you need. So I want to show you another example of a project where we were trying to better understand academic end users. And this is the academic end users personas research. And I have a code here called pain points. And as you can see, under pain points, I have things like finding the right type of content, accessing databases is a more complex process than Google, coming up with keywords to enter, determining which databases are relevant, and on and on. And this goes back to the point where try to keep your codes. It's better to have too many than too few codes in this first stage of analysis, because then you can decide, oh, you know what, these two are very similar. I'll just merge them and call them X. And that's easier to do than the other way, where you decide, oh, this is too broad, I want to break it up. Then that's a little more complicated. It's still doable in that you can still click the excerpt and then recode things, but it's just better to have more codes rather than less. Okay, and another thing I wanted to say here is, at this stage, you can actually collaborate with others. So for this specific project, once I did this, I invited a colleague of mine from the UX design team and told him, hey, I have all of these pain points were listed, and I put these on sticky notes, each of them on separate sticky notes, and I asked him, can you help me bucket them in meaningful categories? And he got so excited, and he really felt like a part of this analysis process, and what we came up with was really great, and it's insights that I couldn't have come up with myself. And so here was the outcome of that. We decided that really the main challenges were to do with search algorithm, and under that we have finding too few articles, too many, etc. And I have the numbers because I have my my deduce Excel spreadsheet. And then another theme was information literacy challenges, and these are some of the challenges, and I have my numbers, number of times cited. Access related issues was another big category, UX or UI visual issues, and then just other miscellaneous pain points. And so we worked together to come up with these big buckets. And when you're coming up with these big buckets, that's a process called axial coding in qualitative research. And that can be a collaborative exercise. You can even invite people from the sales team or from other teams and have post-its and have people, work with you to put things in groups, and that really helps with communicating findings and involving other people. So another advantage. Now, one last example that I'd like to show you is how we used Deduce to analyze quantitative survey data. So we administered a survey to 90 users, and one of the questions was open-ended, and we just asked researchers what tools or websites they use when conducting research. It was a very general question, and we got lots of responses. EBSCO, ProQuest, Mendeley, and all of these things. And so here's the document. So what I did was to just download or rather export all of the open-ended responses, plop them into a Word document, imported the Word document into Deduce, and now I have all of this here, and I can just create, as I read through the notes, I can start to create the codes, the parent codes, Chegg, Safari, Chrome, etc., etc. And now whenever Chegg appears, it will be coded under Chegg as I go through. And by the end of this process, I will have X number of people citing Chegg, X number of people citing EBSCO, and things like that. And later on, I might decide, I want actually big categories like citation tools, submit. And I want to bring in all of the codes that were citation related. And if, say, JSTOR was one of them, I'd just say reparent. So give it a new parent, which is citation tools. I wouldn't say merge, because merge would then mush all of the citation tools kind of into this. Rather than making them subheadings, it would kind of lump them into that big category. So subtle distinctions, but important. So there are many things to learn about Deduce, but I think between these 3 videos you have enough to get started, or at least to assess whether this is something you'd like to use or pursue. And the EBSCO UX team is always available if you have questions, but I really wish you luck with analyzing your qualitative data, and I hope this tool helps you out. If nothing at all, I think the main takeaway is when you're conducting the interviews, try to take verbatim notes as much as possible. Whether or not you use Deduce to do the analysis, it's very important for objectivity. And then the second thing I'd like to highlight as well is just when you're coding, the more codes is better than less, and then you merge them later on. But again, we are here to answer any questions. Thank you very much.